Mafia bosses are often seen as powerful, secretive figures, commanding respect, wealth, and fear. Through illicit enterprises like bootlegging, gambling, drug trafficking, and racketeering, these underworld kings built empires that rivaled legitimate businesses. The sheer wealth they amassed was staggering, making them some of the richest criminals the world has ever seen. In today's video, we'll take a look at the top 10 richest mafia bosses in history, delving into their wealth, influence, and the legacy they left behind. Grab a seat and prepare to be captivated by the true stories of these legendary kings of crime. Number 10. Joseph Kennedy. While the Kennedy name is more often associated with political power, the family's wealth has long been rumored to have murky beginnings. Joseph Kennedy, patriarch of the Kennedy dynasty and father of President John F. Kennedy, allegedly made a significant portion of his fortune through bootlegging during the Prohibition era in the 1920s. Though he wasn't a traditional mafia boss, Kennedy's connections with mob figures, such as those in Chicago outfit, enabled him to profit from smuggling alcohol into the United States. With an estimated net worth of $400 million by the time he transitioned to legitimate enterprises, including real estate and film, Kennedy's ability to navigate the criminal underworld with finesse earned him a place on this list. Despite his involvement in shady dealings, Joseph Kennedy is remembered more for his political legacy than his mob ties. His wealth was a stepping stone that paved the way for one of the most powerful American families in history. Kennedy's influence extended beyond business into media and politics, contributing to his son's rise to presidency. He skillfully balanced his public image as a philanthropist while maintaining relationships in the shadows, cementing his controversial but impactful legacy. Number 9. Frank Costello. Known as the Prime Minister of the Underworld, Frank Costello was a powerful mafia boss during the 1930s to 1950s, amassing a fortune estimated at $1 billion. Costello's empire was built on a foundation of illegal gambling, bootlegging, and political influence. His calm demeanor and diplomatic approach made him a unique figure in the mob world, where violence was often the answer to disputes. Costello was known for making strategic connections with politicians, ensuring that his interests were well protected in high places. His ability to blend seamlessly into the political elite made Costello a particularly successful mafia boss. He controlled a vast portion of New York's gambling scene and used his political ties to gain even more power and wealth. Though his reign ended when an assassination attempt forced him to step down, Costello's legacy as a wealthy, well-connected mobster lives on. After his retirement, Costello remained influential, continuing to mentor young mobsters, cementing his role as the behind-the-scenes power broker, preferred manipulation over brute force. Number 8. Al Capone. Perhaps the most notorious gangster in American history, Al Capone, also known as Scarface, ruled the Chicago underworld during the Prohibition era. From the 1920s to the early 1930s, Capone's criminal empire, the Chicago Outfit, made a staggering $100 million annually through bootlegging, speakeasies, and gambling. Adjusted for inflation, his fortune would amount to around $1.3 billion today. Capone's reign was marked by ruthless violence, but he was also a savvy businessman. His control over the illegal alcohol trade made him immensely rich, allowing him to live a life of luxury. Capone was notorious for his flashy lifestyle, from his custom-tailored suits to his extravagant parties. However, despite his wealth and power, Capone's downfall came not from murder charges, but from tax evasion, a classic case of crime not paying in the end. Capone's influence on organized crime was so vast that his name became synonymous with the mob. Even after his imprisonment, his legacy lingered in pop culture as the quintessential gangster. Number 7. Anthony Fat Tony Salerno. Anthony Fat Tony Salerno was one of the most powerful mafia leaders in New York during the 1970s and 1980s. He made most of his money, about $1 billion, through gambling and labor racketeering. Salerno had control over New York City's construction industry, especially the concrete business. Many important buildings like skyscrapers and offices were built under his control. Unlike other mafia bosses, Solerno did not show off, He preferred to keep a low profile, working quietly behind the scenes. However, law enforcement eventually caught him, and he was convicted in the commission trial, which targeted top mafia leaders. Solerno's legacy is that of a powerful yet quiet mobster who controlled much of New York's construction industry. Number 6. John Gotti. John Gotti, known as the Dapper Don because of his sharp dressing, was the leader of the Gambino crime family during the 1980s and 1990s. His fortune, estimated around $30 million, came from illegal activities like gambling, loan sharking, extortion, and construction contracts. Gotti was different from other mafia bosses because he enjoyed public attention and saw himself as a modern-day outlaw. Gotti's rise to power was quick and violent. He avoided multiple convictions in court, earning the nickname the Teflon Don. However, in 1992, he was finally convicted of murder and racketeering. Even though Gotti spent the rest of his life in prison, he remained one of the most famous mafia bosses, still maintaining influence over the Gambino family from behind bars. Number 5. Pablo Escobar. Pablo Escobar, the king of cocaine, was a Colombian drug lord who became one of the wealthiest criminals in history. With an estimated net worth of $30 billion at the height of his power, in the 1970s and 1980s, Escobar's Medellin cartel controlled over 80% of the global cocaine trade, making him not just wealthy, but also one of the most feared and powerful men in the world. His empire extended across multiple countries, and he operated with a ruthless hand, responsible for thousands of deaths. Escobar's lavish lifestyle included private jets, luxury homes, and even his own zoo filled with exotic animals. But beyond his riches, Escobar cultivated an image of a Robin Hood figure, particularly in his hometown of Medellin, where he funded hospitals, schools, and housing for the poor. His wealth gave him considerable political power, to the point where he offered to pay off Colombia's national debt in exchange for immunity. However, his empire eventually collapsed under pressure for Colombian and US law enforcement. In 1993, Escobar was killed in a rooftop shootout, but his legend lives on, with stories of hidden cash and his sprawling estates becoming part of his enduring myth. Number 4. Meer Lansky. Meer Lansky, known as the mob's accountant, was not a traditional mafia boss, but his financial genius made him one of the wealthiest and most influential figures in organized crime. Lansky helped build the mafia's fortunes during the mid-20th century, playing a pivotal role in developing Las Vegas's casinos and international gambling operations. His estimated net worth of $1 billion was amassed through his involvement in various illegal activities, including bootlegging during Prohibition, gambling, and money laundering. What made Lansky particularly notable was his ability to operate largely under the radar. He was never convicted of a serious crime, and despite his involvement in organized crime, he managed to avoid long prison sentences. His operations expanded globally, with significant interest in Cuba's casino industry before the rise of Fidel Castro. Lansky's knack for managing the mob's money and his ability to hide assets in offshore accounts made him invaluable to organized crime. When he died in 1983, Lansky left behind a complex legacy, but he remained one of the wealthiest and most elusive figures in mafia history. Number 3. Carlos Leder. Carlos Leder, a co-founder of the Medellin cartel alongside Pablo Escobar, was one of the wealthiest and most innovative drug lords in history. His estimated fortune of $2.7 billion was earned through his role as a key figure in smuggling cocaine into the United States during the late 1970s and early 1980s. Leder's contribution to the cartel's success was his logical genius. He famously purchased Norman's Cay, a private island in the Bahamas, which served as a refueling station for planes smuggling cocaine from Colombia into the US. Leder lived an extravagant lifestyle, funded by his vast cocaine empire. However, as his wealth and influence grew, so did his paranoia and erratic behavior. He began to dream of political power, styling himself as a revolutionary figure while maintaining his involvement in the drug trade. His downfall came when Colombian authorities, with the help of US forces, captured him. Extradited to the United States, Leder was sentenced to life in prison. Despite his spectacular rise and fall, Leder remains one of the most colorful and controversial figures in the history of organized crime. Number 2. Amado Carrillo Fuentes. Known as the Lord of the Skies, Amado Carrillo Fuentes was the head of the Juarez cartel in Mexico during the 1980s and 1990s. His estimated net worth was an astounding $25 billion, making him one of the wealthiest criminals of all time. Carrillo earned his nickname due to his use of a fleet of private jets to transport massive quantities of cocaine from Colombia to Mexico and eventually into the United States. Carrillo's cartel was highly organized and incredibly profitable, dominating the drug trade during his reign. However, Carrillo was constantly on the run, and his desire to evade capture led him to undergo plastic surgery to alter his appearance. Tragically for him, the surgery went wrong, and he died on the operating table in 1997. His immense fortune and mysterious death cemented his place in criminal history. Number 1. Simeon Mvich. At the top of the list is Simeon Mvich, often referred to as the Russian Godfather or the Brainy Don. Mvich controlled an international criminal empire that spanned Europe, Russia, and North America, with interests in arms trafficking, drug smuggling, and even art theft. His estimated net worth is around $10 billion, though the true extent of his wealth is likely much higher due to his sophisticated money laundering schemes. Mvich is notorious for his ability to evade law enforcement, allegedly operating with the backing of Russian political figures. His operations are vast and complex, making him one of the most elusive mafia figures in modern history. While much of his empire remains shrouded in secrecy, there's no denying that Mvich's wealth and influence make him the richest and most powerful mafia boss the world has ever seen. The world of organized crime has always been captivated by the public's imagination, with tales of luxury, power, and danger. These 10 mafia bosses are a testament to how far-reaching and profitable the criminal underworld can be. From the bootleggers of the Prohibition era to the drug lords of the 20th century, these men amass staggering fortunes through illegal means. Their legacies, often shrouded in mystery and myth, remind us that behind every fortune, there's a story, sometimes dark, but always intriguing. So who's your favorite mafia boss from the list? Let us know down in the comments section below.